Hi, welcome back to my channel. This book review is for Best Served Hot by Amanda Elliot. Now, in this story, we have two restaurant critics who are on opposite ends of the scale. Okay, Julie Zimmerman, on the one hand, she does work as an executive assistant to a very demanding boss. But then on the other hand, she's also Julie Z Eats NYC on social media. Yes, she's a social media influencer. She is a food critic. She goes from restaurant to restaurant, eating different foods, taking pictures, and praising, or however she describes each meal that she partakes of. And she has a best friend who goes with her on most of her jaunts to these different restaurants. But there's her enemy, because yes, this ends up being an enemies to lovers story, because we have Bennett Richard McAllister Wright. Okay, what a name, right? Well, we have Bennett, and he has a job at a major New York paper called the New York Scroll. What is Bennett's job? He's a food critic. But guess what? He's a food critic for a famous or a busy or a notable New York paper where his name is everything. The respect he garners is everything. So she's on her own trying to make a name for herself, and he's got the job. As a matter of fact, not only does he have a good job, he has the very job that Julie went out for but lost to him. And now they end up becoming competitors who work together. Now, one of their first meetings was kind of like at a food fair, and she wanted to get as much coverage of this food fair as she could. And she gets in one line, and guess who's in that line? Her nemesis, Bennett. So she tells some story that, oh, such and such is happening over there. So him and the guy with him, I don't know if it was his photographer or whatever, go over there, and nothing was happening over there. But guess what? It gave Julie and her friend a chance to get further in the line and get to taste that very food so that she could review that very food. So Bennett comes back to her and says, that was a cruel trick that you played on me. She goes, did I play a trick on you? Oh, I kind of thought something was happening over there that would be more interesting to you. That's the beginning of this contentious hate to love relationship. Now, somebody comes up with the idea that Bennett and Julie should work together in their reviews and write from both sides or write from both angles. And if they do, then her social media status will rise, as well as his popularity with his magazine will rise. So it's going to be a win-win. Okay? Now, this is a rom-com, a romantic comedy. And I mentioned that at this point because there's a scene in the book where, for all the eating out that they do, for all the expertise about criticizing food, they decide to make a meal together, to photograph it, to write about it, to promote it, and it ends up being a disaster. And that's where I can see the rom-com side of this book come out, is that kitchen disaster. But something starts to happen here. It's a trope. The trope in this book is enemies to lovers. What does that mean? It's a romantic comedy, right? What does romance mean? Happily ever after. Who are our protagonists? They are Julie and Bennett. What am I trying to say? We know that somehow, some way, Julie and Bennett are going to end up together. But how can they do that? Remember, he got the very job that she wanted. She resents him. She's trying to build her clientele, her social media status up, review by review by review, whereas all he has to do is put his name in the byline, and thousands of copies of that newspaper will be sold, and thousands of people will read his articles. But yet, somehow, some way, the more time they spend together, those lines, that thin line between love and hate starts to blur. So our author, and I think it's Amanda Elliot if I'm not mistaken. Yes, Amanda Elliot. What our author does is she very craftily blurs those lines so that it becomes easy to see how Julie and Bennett actually complement each other. And then while all of this is going on, there is some drama. And the drama is at Julie's workplace. And surprisingly, even though her boss is very demanding, that's not where the drama is. It's with his snobby, silver spoon daughter, who's also at the workplace. And I thought that was an interesting dynamic to this book because it kind of brought in classism, which was rather a surprise to me because I'm so busy reading the trope enemies to lovers and looking for those lines to be blurrier and blurrier and see when they start to develop feelings for each other. But then there's this story of classism that comes out in this book. I have not yet and would not actually, until I write my own review, read any other reviews, so I don't know if other book reviewers picked up on the classism. But if you read this book, let me know if you pick up on it, because I think it was really, really good that Amanda Elliot included that in this romantic comedy, because it's something that happens, and it happens all too often. And a lot of books these days attack the Me Too movement, sexual harassment in the workplace. Well, what was in the workplace in this book was the classism. And now it kind of makes me kind of want to hurry up and get my review written so I can go ahead and read some other reviews to see if anybody else picked up on it. So that is Amanda Elliott's Best Served Heart. I haven't rated it yet, but it's easily a 4 and it might possibly be a 5 by the time I write my book review. So a 4.5 or higher is what I'm going to give this book, Best Served Heart by Amanda Elliot. Thank you for watching. Bye-bye.